Eastern Studies at George Washington University and a former U.S. ambassador. He joins us here in the studio. Mr. Gnehm, really appreciate you being with us. So the U.S. is seeking a ceasefire deal. Turkey's President Erdogan has already rejected that, saying he will not negotiate with a terrorist entity. Does that mean Vice President Mike Pence is going to Ankara now to negotiate a deal that is already dead on arrival?
That would be apparent from the comments that you just made, which I have also seen. It seems very unusual then that he would proceed based on that fact. But I think that probably, given the administration's position here in town, which is under quite a lot of attack, as you mentioned earlier, that that may be his way of trying to demonstrate to those people here who are criticizing him that he is trying to do something to bring about an end to the military venture in Northern Syria.
In your opinion, is the U.S. diplomatic initiative here sincere, or is this just a way to diffuse tensions between the White House and Congress right now?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with domestic politics, a lot to do with the criticism that he's had here. I think, though, that we would like to see the hostilities end. I think we all consider it just a tragedy for everyone. And therefore, anything that we could do to try to bring about a cessation of the hostilities would be good. I'm not very optimistic.
How can these two NATO allies even begin to resolve this crisis when the fundamental disagreement is over the narrative of the YPG in Syria?
I think our relationship is going to become even worse, deteriorate even further. Well, I think the sanctions that have been announced are, I hate to use the word trivial, no sanction is trivial, but compared to things that we might have done are de minimis, and that might be important, again, to your question earlier, to reflect a desire to try to convince local politicians in Washington that he's doing something when he really isn't doing a lot. But I really think that the relations are going to go down here. Turkey's international standing at this point is very bad. I mean, there's criticism from all over Europe and other countries for this attack. I think we could have dealt with it in a different way, and I'm just sorry that this is the consequence.
Well, I think the world's understanding of the operation is probably partially to blame here. I mean, Turkey's certainly looking out for its own security challenges. The U.S. had the opportunity to create this safe zone with Turkey in Syria. There was an opportunity for the YPG to pull back. I spoke to a former general the other day and who sort of points the finger at all sides, the YPG for not pulling back, the United States for pulling troops out of Syria. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of gray area. The question is, how does this change the landscape of the Syrian civil war? What does Russia's role become, and where do the YPG go from here? Will they presumably be protected by the Assad regime, and how does that affect the situation on the ground?
Well, I agree with the analysis you just put forward, that there was an opportunity to deal with this problem the way it was suggested, and all the parties have simply failed to meet the commitments that they had done, and the result is what we find. But I think the American decision to pull out was a terrible decision. It has opened the door for the Russians to expand their influence. It has undermined an ally. And by the way, most Americans who don't understand the internal problems that Turkey faces with PKK, which I do, by the way, and I understand that that's a legitimate concern, all they see is that we abandon an ally that fought with us, that lost 11,000 people, that helped defeat the biggest threat to us, which was ISIS and this Islamic State, and we abandoned them. And Americans don't do that. That's at least that's the mantra of the moment. And so it's really a difficult situation for the administration.
And of course, we know it's not that simple.
Not that simple at all.
Even the United States designates the PKK as a terror group and the military arm. And you know, the United States right now uses the narrative of the Kurds and all of this as a very generic broad term, not identifying the group. But Edward Gnehm, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your analysis and thoughts. Thanks for that. Well, one of the major concerns about